Welcome to this special episode of the Journey to Oz podcast, where we share some insights into the unfolding situation in Ukraine. For several weeks, thousands of Russian troops were stationed at the Ukraine border before Russian President Vladimir Putin announced earlier this week that Russia would conduct a special military operation in Ukraine, which was followed by missile strikes across a number of regions of Ukraine, mostly targeting military bases. The attacks have been met with international condemnation, and Putin has warned that if any other countries try to interfere, they will face consequences that they have never seen. Today we hear from Kristina and then Alex. Both are originally from the southern regions of Ukraine and are now living in Victoria. They each have family in Ukraine who have been giving them updates of the situation on the ground. The Russian invasion of Ukraine could potentially cause a large humanitarian crisis, and the Australian government has indicated that they may offer temporary asylum to Ukrainians if the situation continues to deteriorate. After we hear from Kristina and Alex, I'll talk through visitor visa options that might be available to bring family and friends to Australia. But first, here's Kristina. Joining us today is Kristina from Ukraine. Kristina, you've been in Australia for several years now. Can you please tell us a bit about what inspired you to migrate to Australia?
That's actually a very good question. I ever considered Australia to go to, but then I met my husband, and it kind of happened. I remember when I was a child, I would run home from school just to watch this Steve Irwin shows. I loved them about Australian nature, and I was just like, oh my God, it's so great. But I could never think that I would be in Australia. It's really crazy. I'm a descendant from Finnish family who lived in US before Second World War. So if I would move from Ukraine, I would consider either America, either Finland, because I would feel that that's where my family belongs.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, so basically love inspired me to move to Australia. I chose country of my husband, and I think I chose very, very lucky. I'm very happy in Australia.
And you're living in the Yarra Valley too, which is a really nice area.
Oh yeah, we moved to Kinglake now, Kinglake West.
Yeah, okay.
It's amazing here. We have lots of parrots. We're feeding them. Nature is beautiful. So I love it.
Beautiful part of the world. Now, whereabouts in Ukraine did you grow up?
I was born on the south of Ukraine in a small town of Voznesensk in Mykolaiv region. But then when I was 5, we moved to the capital city of the region, which is Mykolaiv. I spent my whole life there, went to school, finished university. My first job was there. My life was quite smooth. In Ukraine, I can't say that I had a lot of problems. Of course, there was problems with poverty, revolutions, wars, but we didn't know anything different. We didn't know any better. So I was the same as all my neighbors. That's what we knew. And it was all right until 2014, unfortunately, when Russia decided that it doesn't want to be friends with Ukraine anymore. Yeah, and since then it has been difficult.
Yeah, so there was the whole situation with the annexation of, I think I pronounced it incorrectly, but Crimea.
You have it right here.
Yeah, okay, just to make sure. But there was that whole situation there, and where you lived in Ukraine is actually not that far from Crimea.
Yeah, it's very close. It's a little bit towards the north from Crimea. It's very close, and it's very scary that it's so close. Maybe it's like, I don't know, 5 hours drive by car.
Yeah,
that's about it.
So was there ever a threat at that point that Russia could spill over further into Ukraine beyond that border into Crimea?
It's hard to tell. Ukraine always had very close relationship with Russia. Ukraine and Russia were always brother nations, very good relationship. But then Ukraine decided that it doesn't want to be under Russian peace anymore, that Ukraine wants to be a European nation, that we want to go with Western mentality, and Russia didn't like that. When USSR still existed, Crimea was given to Ukraine as a present. So Russia always was bitter about it after USSR died. Russia was bitter about Crimea, and they had some claims, but we could never think that they would do anything about it. People in Crimea, they didn't speak Ukrainian, they spoke Russian. A lot of Bulgarian people live there, so it's not like only Russian people live in Crimea. In fact, that wouldn't be true. But they had pro-Russian mentality. They would be happy to join Russia, I think. But it's not right what Russia has done. I don't think Crimea was given a choice if they wanted to join Russia or not.
Yeah, okay. And so it's now 2 days as we talk since Russia crossed the border into Ukraine and started attacking. Whereabouts are your family located at the moment?
My family is still in Mykolaiv.
Okay.
So now fighting is 40 minutes away from them in Kherson. It's another capital city of the south of Ukraine, as well as Odessa. I hope that Kherson will hold the ground, because if Kherson falls, the whole south will be taken. Mykolaiv was always a military city. It's kind of little peninsula, and there are only 3 entrances to the city, and only one of them is by land. So it's a big target for Russia.
Right. Okay. So does that mean that it's easier for them to protect it because there is only one way they can enter the city?
Yes, it would be easier for Ukrainians to protect Mykolaiv, but if Mykolaiv does fall, I don't know what would they do. Right now, all entrances from the city are blocked. Only women, children, and young men and older men can leave. Everyone who is 18, from 18 to 60, they cannot leave Mykolaiv. So men have to stay inside the city, and if needed, they need to defend it.
Yeah, okay. And your father is within that age bracket, isn't he?
My father has died last year from COVID, so...
Yeah, okay. I'm really sorry to hear that, Kristina.
It's fine. It's life, so what can we do?
Yeah, and what are your family telling you about the current situation where they live?
Right now, it's quiet. I talked to my friends, and he said that my friend said that everything is so still and quiet that it's actually like you can feel how heavy the air is, and it's terrifying. But right now, at this time, it's 3:00 in Australia. It's quiet. We will see what will happen in the morning. Also, I have talked to my friend who is in Ukrainian police. He said that no one should panic. Everyone should stay strong, and we will see what will happen today. So whatever happens today will determine the direction where this conflict will go. Yeah, my mom, it was crazy. Yesterday morning, I called her and I was in great mood. You're up really early. Why are you up so early? And she's like, well, Russia has invaded Ukraine. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And then I hear explosion on the phone.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and we just stopped talking. We were listening what's happening. It's still very difficult to comprehend that Russia has invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
We could never think that will happen. We thought that they might enter separated part of Ukraine as peacekeepers, maybe. But what they're doing to Ukraine, it's crazy. They're trying to demilitarize Ukraine, which is it's a crime against humanity. How can some other country bomb all military bases of another sovereign country? It's crazy. So I'm still waiting for the morning in Ukraine now, and we will see.
Yeah, and what do you think Russia's ultimate objective is here?
My personal opinion, it's proven a point to the West that they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
But I remember it's more like rumors and whispers from my childhood. When Putin just came to power, his main idea was to take all USSR lands back and turn all of that into Russia.
Okay.
And now he's invading Ukraine. But if Ukraine falls, if he takes Ukraine, what is going to stop him from taking Lithuania, Latvia,
Yeah.
Estonia, because those lands were part of USSR as well.
Yeah, it's scary to think of that whole eastern part of Europe would go back under USSR.
Yeah, it's crazy. Ukraine is an independent, powerful, sovereign country. People want to join Europe. People want to join West. People don't want any iron curtains anymore. People want to be happy. People want to communicate with everyone. But Russia, it doesn't seem that Russia is going that way. Russia wants to stay a big threat to the world right now, and it doesn't look like they want peace. And I think this is diabolical. From the last news that I know, they have taken Chernobyl, and this is really scary. Yeah.
Is that just recently, like within the last few hours?
Yeah, last few hours they have taken Chernobyl.
Wow. Okay. Do you think there's going to be any way that your mother can leave Ukraine?
My mother has her old mother, and she refuses to leave her, which is understandable. I don't know how I could leave my mom in this situation. I'm hoping that Ukraine will stand the ground, and the territory where my mom is now, it will stay Ukraine. So she will have some kind of chance to have a better life. If not, I'm hoping that maybe they can go to Poland, seek some refuge there, and then I would be trying to get them to Australia, but I don't know how that can work. It's too early to say anything right now because we really don't know what Russia is going to do and how powerful Ukrainian troops are. From what I see right now, the only countries who are actually helping Ukraine is UK and Australia. Even though America and UK were obligated to protect Ukraine militarily if any threat was in Ukraine. And US gives sanctions. They say that they stand with Ukraine, but nothing really happens. And right now, these days are critical for Ukraine. These days, it's when Ukraine needs the most powerful help from the West, from the whole world. Because if Ukraine falls, Europe is next. If Russia will take the grasp over Europe, and it will be scary. It will be the end of the West as we know it. It's my opinion.
It's kind of like the late 30s all over again.
Yes.
You know, Germany started with Austria, and then they sort of just went from there. And we know what happens next. We've seen this story before.
And Putin says exactly the same words as Hitler was saying in his time, that Ukraine is ancient territory of Russia, which is simply not true. Kiev is one of the most ancient cities in whole Europe. Everything came from Kiev. So if anything, Russia is ancient territory of Ukraine, because everything came from Kiev and Rus, which is where? In Kiev, in Ukraine. In this case, Putin's logic works that he can take all lands, but let's talk about St. Petersburg, which was Swedish land. Let's talk about Karelia, which was Finnish land. Why wouldn't he give those lands back? But that's not going to happen. He wants to take and take and take. That's scary. That's crazy. That's illegal. That's diabolical.
You mentioned before that Australia and the UK were providing support. Are you able to sort of give a bit more detail on what sort of support they are providing?
Yes, they are providing weapons, artillery. I think they are helping with finances, little bit of money, but that's the only help that was given to Ukraine. And I think that's the main reason why Ukrainian soldiers can even stand any chance against Russia, because now they have good quality modern weapons. They can use them against Russia and the USSR weapons, because I don't think that Russia is that powerful as they want people to think it is. Even the smallest man can create the biggest shadow. And I think that's the real case with Russia right now.
And Kristina, how does this compare to growing up in Ukraine when you were a child?
It's very different. When I was a kid, there was still kind of post-USSR world. People loved Russia. People were friends with Russia. In fact, it was embarrassing to speak Ukrainian on the south and on the east of Ukraine. Everyone spoke Russian. Right now, it's very different. No one wants to do anything with Russia. Russian language, like it's just a language. I can speak English, I can speak French, German, it doesn't matter. It's just a tool that humans use to communicate, that's it. But now Ukraine wants to be more independent. Now Ukraine wants to go to join Europe. Now Ukraine wants to become more Western country with different mentality, with different view on the world. Ukraine doesn't want to be part of this closed terror, which is Russian peace right now. And it's horrible that Ukraine cannot be given a chance to do what they actually want.
Because this all sort of came about initially with Ukraine wanting to join NATO, and then they decided to not join NATO, but still Russia's gone ahead.
Yes, Ukraine was begging Europe to let them join European Union.
Yeah.
Ukraine was asking to join NATO. Ukraine is ready. Ukraine wants it. But because Ukraine is a not small, Ukraine is more like country in between two superpowers of the world. And unfortunately, Ukraine doesn't have a word in it. So instead of letting Ukraine make its own choices, Russia and whoever else is making choices for them. I understand why all of this is happening. There is a choice if Ukraine is going to be given a better life or the whole world is going to be given something else. I'm not sure. But it's been very difficult to be Ukrainian right now because you want to be just the same as everyone else. You want to be free. You want to be happy. But Russian occupation is not letting anyone do this. And these promises of help are not very helpful because they need help, not the promises. But Ukraine is very different to what it used to be. It's not a Russian country. It's not a USSR country. It's 100% European country. It just needs to have this chance to show it to the rest of the world, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, for the sake of your friends and family, I hope that there is help given from the West at this point. But I really want to thank you for joining us today and giving us some insight into the situation in Ukraine. And as I say, I hope that the situation resolves itself sooner rather than later.
Yes, I really hope for that too. And thank you for having me, for letting me speak. As a Ukrainian in Australia, I want more people to know what's happening right now because, let's say, people in Russia, they don't actually know the truth. They don't know what's going on. They still think that Russia is liberating Russian-speaking Ukrainians, which is just crazy even to think about it. How Putin says that Ukrainian nation is not a nation, Ukraine is not a country. The government in Ukraine is not legal and they are Nazis. That's crazy. That's not true. The only Nazi who is here, that's Putin and his regime.
We've got Alex here today, who is originally from Ukraine, a Russian from Ukraine, and migrated to Australia. How long ago was it, Alex, that you came to Australia?
30 years this year.
30 years this year. Wow. And can you please tell us a little bit about what inspired you to come to Australia?
I came when the Soviet Union just sort of disintegrated. So everything what I remember was Soviet Union. and I definitely didn't fit in. So my mentality was very different. I was the black sheep. And when the opportunity came up to come to Australia, my uncle left Ukraine in 1970s, and he went through Italy. He didn't know where he will be ending up, but he ended up here in Melbourne. So he was able to send us an invitation, and my husband, myself, and our daughter, we came here. It was the points system. So if you have an education,
right, yeah.
Plus, if you have relatives, it was adding, I don't remember, I think either 10 or 15 points.
Yep. Okay. It sounds like skilled migration.
Yeah, like a skilled migration, yes.
Yeah.
So we easily got those points because our education was really in demand at that time. I was an IT person. And so we came to Australia, and here I found this is my home. That's where I belong, the people mentality, how people behave, how people talk. I felt at home. So I'm here.
Fantastic. Your hometown is in USSR, but now close to the border of Ukraine and Russia?
It is in Ukraine, and it was in Ukraine, but then it was Ukrainian Republic of Soviet.
Right, okay.
Then it was independent Ukraine, and we left basically in a year where Ukraine declared independence. Nobody knew how it will work out, and now I don't know what will be.
So whereabouts did you grow up, Alex?
That's actually the part that was in the war for the last 8 years. That's a Donbass, the city called Mariupol, and that was part of Donetsk Oblast. Okay.
And do you still have family in Mariupol?
My husband has got his sister, nephew, and his auntie.
Okay.
And they all in Mariupol. So recently he lost his parents due to COVID. But yeah, the rest of the family is there.
Right. And was Ukraine badly affected by COVID?
Ukraine was badly affected by COVID, but unlike here in Australia, they never had access to free testing.
Right, okay.
They didn't have much of medical support either. So when somebody got sick, they basically were saying, well, fair enough, I'm sick.
Yeah, okay.
And that's it. So
they just accepted it and did nothing about it?
Yeah, well, when people become too sick, they will be taken to the hospital. I don't know how it's hospital there, but
yeah,
you can, unlike here, if you getting sick, you can't just go to do your tests, like in testing site, have your PCR, being told what to do, being supported, having the calls each day from medical personnel to check. It's nothing like that, no.
Okay. And what are your family telling you about the current situation?
Well, they try not to upset us too much because they know that we're worried about them. Now they relocated to my husband's friend who's still there, who's got the house because they're living in high-rise building and they're scared.
Okay. Yeah,
so
right.
He's got just a private house with the cellar.
Okay.
And so they moved in with him and they hiding in the cellar wherever they feel like they need to. So
wow.
that's the reason why they moved in, because if the shelling start to hit the area or if there will be fight on the streets or something, they have somewhere to hide.
Yeah, okay. And how many of them are there hiding in the cellar?
1, 2, 3. Well, 4 is as far as I know, but might be more.
Yeah, okay. Have they sort of heard any fighting nearby?
As my sister-in-law told me, that they're so used to hear the the sound of fighting in the last 8 years that they're starting just to ignore it and pretend it's not there.
Okay, because there's been fighting in the region anyway for that whole time, and then this is just who's that fighting been between in the region?
This is Donbass. So as you know, part of it being sort of separated and announced that they are separating, and what they call separatists, and part stays with Ukraine, and the borderline is basically about 30 km from the Mariupol.
Yep. Okay.
So, it's always there for all those years.
So it's kind of like Russian separatists fighting against Ukraine for that territory, or?
This is very complex, and it will take much longer than 20 minutes for me to explain what's going on there.
Yeah, right, okay.
But it's not as black and white at all. And
has your family considered trying to leave Ukraine?
They can't. The reason that they can't is that Auntie, she is immobile. She's in a vegetable condition at home. So it's not such thing there as nursing homes. And even if they were, they would not leave her there.
Yeah, okay.
So they just looking after her, and she is just bedridden, not talking. She's got very bad stroke. And after that, she is mute. She can't move. She's basically just eating. That's it.
She just eats, and that's all she does.
So they're feeding her. They almost force feeding her, and that's it.
Wow. Okay.
So they can't leave her, and they can't transport her. But I just read today in the Mariupol local newspaper that it is currently an evacuation goes from Mariupol to Lvov, and the government supplies the trains to provide for people who want to leave the city.
Okay, but that's not an option for them. No. Okay. And Alex, why do you think Russia has taken the steps they have in the last few days?
I don't know. It's up until the last second, I was thinking that this is just the muscle flexing and that's it.
It's what it looked like. It really is. Like, I mean, Putin talks a lot, but doesn't seem to take action usually.
Well, so why he decided to do it, and why he decided to do it now, and why he decided to do it the way he did, doing it, I don't know. There are some good reasons for that. I mean, good from his point of view, obviously. Yeah. And it is obvious that this is not something that's done on impulse. That has been meditated for a very long time, planned, all the things checked and rechecked. So all the T's and crosses, everything done.
Yeah.
And then he proceeded. And it was a lot of rhetoric lately. And now that's what it is.
What do you think the objective of this is?
Well, from what Putin was saying, but then again, I only can take his word, basically, not what he's thinking. He said that he considering Ukraine to be part of Russia historically and culturally, and therefore his mission is to reunite.
Right.
And basically bring Ukraine under Russia.
So if he's going to do that, he's going to have to do that to Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania. And
okay. With that one, it's yes and no, because all Baltic countries, I nearly said republic because I'm so used to it, basically all Baltic countries, they managed to get into NATO. So they are protected by NATO, and the NATO's forces are in the countries.
Right, okay.
Whereas Ukraine was not, and for many reasons. But now, they're on their zone, and that's what that's the most dangerous thing and most frustrating thing. That's the whole world looking at it. And everybody said that's how bad Putin is. But Ukrainians don't have any help, real help.
Yeah.
So they on their own, and they don't have a proper army. They're not prepared for the war. They've never been in a war. They only been these little fights, but it's not real. They and it's demoralizing because you see, Russians and Ukrainians, they've been together since, it's always been like a one nation. And so there is no family where you wouldn't find either one or another. And now they have to fight against each other. So not everyone prepared for this.
So there's going to be scenarios there where there's friends fighting against each other.
That's what
potentially.
It is. That's what it is.
Crazy.
They're not just friends. It's basically brother on brother.
Yeah, wow.
Even my husband's relatives, some relatives are still in Mariupol, in Ukraine. Some relatives are in St. Petersburg, which is Russia.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
The thing is that in the current situation, and that's how I can see it, Putin basically took the whole world into ransom.
Yeah.
If they will react, he can press the button, and he stated it clearly in his speech. He will start nuclear war, which is, and he basically stated it. Stay away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will see something that you never seen.
So if we see Western troops go to Ukraine to help Ukraine defend, then that's potentially what the outcome could be.
And nobody knows what he will or he will not do because he is not acting rationally at all.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if Western world will leave everything as is, and Ukraine will eventually fall down to Putin, that gives him the winning card. He knows that he can do whatever he wants as long as he can push back, so basically, if NATO help, they're risking nuclear war. If NATO didn't help on the ground, they become toothless dragon.
It's a lose-lose situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
And no one will want to play chicken with Putin over nuclear war.
No.
Especially given, like, the last time, Japan in the 40s received a nuclear bomb, and the technology since then has...
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say improved, but I don't know if that's the right word for nuclear weapons improving. It's not. I don't think there's really a way that you can say that. But yeah, they've evolved. Yeah, true.
So yes, that's how it is at the moment. The worst, what I can see out of all of it, because the war is starting, the war is finishing. But kids who are now living through this war, they will grow with fear and hatred.
Yeah.
And that fear and hatred will stay with them for the rest of their life. And they will teach that fear and hatred to their kids. Boys, young boys who are now in the army, serving in the army, and are now in a battle, they will have, because they're fighting against their brothers, basically. This is psychological damage that is irreparable. So we basically losing a couple of generations of people to that. Not losing in terms of actual deaths, but losing in terms of mental capacity.
Yeah, and quality of life as well. Hopefully common sense prevails and it doesn't go any further than this, but it's not looking good. And I mean, yeah, but look, thank you for joining us today, Alex. Really, really appreciate it. And I hope that your family are okay. I really do. Yeah, my thoughts are with you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Again, a big thanks to Kristina and Alex for taking part in the podcast at such short notice. It's a really stressful time for them, and I really hope that the situation in Ukraine improves. Now, the Australian government has indicated that Ukrainian visa applicants would be prioritised. So if you're listening to this and you have any friends or family who are able to leave Ukraine, it may be worth applying for a visitor visa for Australia. Humanitarian visa places may become available in the future, but there's no definite timeline on that. So there's several streams of visitor visa. These include business, tourist, and family sponsored. The business visitor visa is for people travelling to Australia to conduct business, but not actually work for an Australian company. The tourist visa is for anyone travelling to Australia for a holiday or to visit family. And the family sponsored visitor visa is for relatives of Australian citizens and permanent residents who have been settled in Australia for at least 2 years. An applicant for a family-sponsored visitor visa can be asked to pay a bond of between $5,000 and $15,000, which is refunded once they leave Australia. The family-sponsored visitor visa also comes with a mandatory no further stay condition, which prevents the holder from applying for another visa once in Australia. This condition can also be placed on a business visitor visa or a tourist visa, but that's only on a case-by-case basis. So the condition can be removed, but only in very special circumstances. Now, all visitor visas have a genuine temporary entry requirement and a financial capacity requirement. The genuine temporary entry, or GTE, is a common reason why visitor visa applications get refused. And what it is it's basically you need to show incentives that the person will leave Australia before the expiry of their visa. For example, they may be employed in their country of origin, they may have assets, family, and it can be really anything. Like they might be a member of local clubs or associations or the local church, whatever it is. We suggest that when you're applying for a visitor visa, you want to include as much evidence of the applicant's incentives to return to the country of origin. In addition to that, the applicant must show that they have the financial capacity to support their stay in Australia. And the longer they stay in Australia, the higher the financial capacity requirement must be. For example, it's easier to show financial capacity for 3 months than it is for 12 months. Family and friends in Australia can also show that they have the financial capacity to support the visa applicant. So it's not just the applicant that has to show their own bank statements. Any person can actually show that they're going to financially support them. We tend to find that business and tourist visa applications are processed quicker than family-sponsored visitor visa applications, but the family-sponsored visitor visa does have a better chance of being granted. Now, we should also mention that the Australian border has recently opened as of the 21st of February, but that's only to fully vaccinated travellers. So we recommend checking the Hansen Migration website for any updates with regards to that and for more details. So that's at www.hansenmigration.com.au and then just click to the blog page. Thanks for listening to the Journey to Oz podcast. If you've liked what you've heard, please subscribe and also leave us a review. We normally release a new episode every second Tuesday, so please stay tuned.
The Journey to Oz podcast is produced by Nick Hansen from Hansen Migration, Migration Agent Registration number 1679147, and Evan Bishop from Worldly Migration, Migration Agent Registration number 1679414. Any information discussed in this podcast is made available for entertainment purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. We do not make any guarantee or accept any responsibility for the accuracy and completeness of any of the information discussed. You should obtain advice from a registered migration agent or an immigration lawyer before acting on any of the content discussed in this podcast. You can find a list of registered migration agents by visiting mara.gov.au. The information contained within this podcast may not be reproduced without our prior written consent. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of land throughout Australia and pay respects to their elders. We extend that respect to all Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders today. Thank you for listening.